Let me sleep, please. Somehow people found a way to supply bread and milk, open shops, and clean the streets every day. The normally beautiful month of September had a difficult start. We were rushing from one side of the country to the other, fighting so many battles. Traveling from one front line and village to another. It was endless. September was endless. Yet it seemed that the enemy were trying to bring an end to the fighting. There was an oil refinery on the outskirts of my city. They had never fired on until the 3rd of September, just before my birthday. They pounded all day and finally smashed the refinery. The flames were visible for days. When firemen tried to extinguish the fire, they would be shot at it. It was a very effective way to demoralize civilians. The thick smoke looked like a black cross above the city. We were exhausted. The entire country was exhausted. But the willpower for freedom and democracy remained. We had also started to get some new equipment, uniforms and weapons. But unfortunately, still no heavy equipment, tanks, armored vehicles or planes. Nothing. Zero. We could feel that something was changing. The behavior of the enemy was becoming more aggressive, more violent, if that was possible. Bombardments would start in the morning, continue for a few hours, then restart again and continue late into the night. Sometimes it would start as early as 4 or 5 o'clock. Psychologically, it was devastating. Even on my days off, I would sleep in the basement, surrounded by civilians and hugging my weapon. Every time a grenade fell, you would hear a scream, broken glass, and the silence. Every time. There was a kind of vacuum in the air, with all the mortars and grenades raining down. I was always on high alert in state of readiness. The bombardments became excruciating. I hardly got any time at home in September. The fighting went on day after day, night after night. We knew we had problems. Our lines were holding, but there was simply not enough manpower or weaponry to properly defend them. The disruption to transport and logistics from the continuous bombardment was immense. Somehow people found a way to supply bread and milk and open their shops and clean the streets every day. I could see how the villages and my city were being reduced to rubble. There were papers and pictures blown all over the street. Memoirs of the families literally flying out of the windows as each shell hit. It was a horrific sight. September, my birthday month, had become a series of terrifying experiences. There were fewer civilians around the city. Meanwhile, Vukovar, in the far east of Croatia, was under siege. It was surrounded, with just one road in that was being slowly closed down. The enemy started using different tactics, with more and more paramilitary units coming across into Croatia. They attacked mercilessly. I wondered how long we were going to be able to withstand this. I knew we were being driven from one position to another. Everyone was under enormous pressure, regardless how much effort we put in. October was the month that I would start to get cold, and the first real rain would fall. Golden September became grey. Sombre October. It was only a question of time before snow would appear and winter would start. As a kid, I remember enjoying chestnuts on the fire. You could buy them on every street corner and enjoy walking home with black fingers from the charred chestnuts. I was sleeping in my unit on my unusually quiet day. The rain was pouring down and everything was soaked. A handful of cars and buses passed by. I was lucky that my grandparents had cooked and cleaned it for me. As I lay in bed, my mind wandered. I just want to be hugged and feel that warmth of woman next to me. I wish that someone would tell me to wake up and that it was just a dream. I still hadn't heard from my parents. They had been in touch with my grandfather though, so I knew they were in my father's home village with my brother. Basically, they only be in touch as they needed to report to the factory office once a week so that they get paid. They forgot to do it, so they needed me to beg officials to record them as if they were coming. Hence, they got paid and I got nothing. It was 4 months into war. I was losing my hair and my face had become different. There was rarely a smile there anymore. I had become a very different person. I was a young adult, not teenager. And I had become very serious. I had even started enjoying vodka. Despite my doubts and miseries, I had become war junkie who relished causing pain to the enemy, the feeling of the action and the adrenaline surging through my body. The friends I had been hanging out with just a few months ago were now spread far and wide. I was in company of grown-up men who had their own challenges from not seeing their children's families or partners. I was sort of okay because I didn't have anybody. Then there was a knock on my door. I was dressed and opened the door to the mailman. It shocked me how amazing it was. Mail kept being delivered through the wall. He gave me a letter with a look of hatred in his eyes. He didn't know I was a soldier. I was just dressed in tracksuit. I didn't understand his look. That look. He just said, "Letter for you." The mailman was usually a very kind man, but that day he wasn't. He gave me the letter and turned his back. I looked to see the letter was addressed to me with a female handwriting and addressed from Belgrade, Serbia on the back. It had my girlfriend's name on it. I hadn't spoken to her for the past few months and I was in shock. That one letter changed my entire behavior. I slowly opened the letter and made a coffee. It was a couple of A4 pages long and she was explaining where she was, what she was doing, how her family was, and even what was cool. Then, right at the end, she told me she hated me and I was at war with her. She had also found a man. I was very upset. Oh God, why? Why this letter now? I kept that letter in my pocket. Every time I had chance, I would read it. She had reached me to tell me that she slept with somebody else. I wasn't at war with her. For a brief moment, it made me feel like my life is over. It wasn't over though. Of course it wasn't over. I try to understand why somebody would want to add more misery to your life by showing you how happy they are. I have witnessed this so many times. People love to stick it to your face, poke you in the eye and shout loudly that they're happier than you. I replied to her simply saying that I would always love her and that I hope she was okay. I added that I truly believe that one day we're going to meet again, or at least talk. I sent that letter without hate for all the things she had told me. That was the beginning of my October. Rain and more fuel on the fire of my broken heart. There was no extinguisher by my side, nobody around to help me to understand why I loved her so much.